of spinning off of that, so I kind of go where the thought brings me. What has been the most common mistake that has been made about you? You know, believe it or not, you know, because I teach speech and I teach, everybody says, well, she doesn't get nervous if she has to speak in front of people. I'm just going to tell you, like this morning, I was nearly vomiting. I was so nervous. Okay, so that's a misconception that, you know, oh, she can do this in her sleep. She can talk in her sleep. She can speak in front of people in her sleep. And no, I get extremely nervous. What has been a common mistake that people have made about you that you've kind of had to overcome?
I have plenty of examples for that. Not only do I look like I'm 12, I'm also a female pilot, which there are not very many. Just the other day, I was helping our passengers on the plane. I climbed into the plane, and one of the passengers was like, "Oh, you get to ride along." And I said, "I'm the pilot." And she was really nice about it. She apologized, but some people aren't so nice. One day, I was in an airport, and I complimented a pilot on his plane. And the uniforms that we wear at our company is we just wear polos and dress pants. We don't have epaulets, and so just by looking at me, you wouldn't guess that I'm a pilot. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll give you the keys if you know how to start it." And then my captain said, I wouldn't say that to her because she does and she could. Things like that, people mistaking me for a flight attendant or just assuming things just based on my appearance, which I've gotten used to and I understand, and I just kind of shrug it off and laugh it off. But there have been plenty of times where people are kind of embarrassed, kind of shocked when I say, "No, I'm your pilot."
Has anybody gotten off the plane going, "Nope, I'm out, tapping out"?
No, thankfully. No. The other day we were in Madison, Wisconsin, and I was with one of our captains who's only, I think he turns 30 this year, and he has a young-looking face too. And I went to go start our APU, which is an auxiliary power unit we use to start the plane. So I went to go up and start that, and there were some older gentlemen that were sitting near me and went up to my captain and said, "Hey, are you doing training today?" And he said, "No." "Well, what plane are you flying?" "Oh, that Citation on the ramp." "Oh, wow. Are you the co-pilot?" "No, that was my co-pilot." That young lady sitting next to me, and he's like, "Yeah." And most of the times I take it as a compliment too, just, I don't know, I don't let it get to me. I've had a lot of people say and assume a lot of things, and I understand it, and I just kind of let it go.
You might have to share. Yeah.
Okay, that's better. And actually, I kind of have something similar to her in regards to appearances and people making assumptions about you. Sorry. When I actually was, I think it's me. When I actually went to treatment, I think everybody sort of envisions lots of people, mostly women, underweighted, feeding tubes, the whole bit. And when I walked in to the Emily program in St. Paul, which is where I eventually ended up because I had family there, I had three options, but essentially. I had Denver, I had Omaha, and St. Paul. And I didn't know anything about Denver and wasn't getting on a plane. And I was not going to Fargo. So I said, I'm holding out for St. Paul. I've got family there, at least I know how to drive there somewhat. But I was so surprised at the people there. And so I think there's a lot more people than we think that are actually struggling with an eating disorder. But because physically they might not look like it, they're not emaciated, or the hair isn't broken off, or they're all that traditional stuff that you kind of are familiar with eating disorders. I was surprised. In fact, we even had a woman who was in her 60s and was blind, and she was in treatment for an eating disorder. And that really was eye-opening for me, because I realized that I wasn't as alone maybe as I thought. Granted, there I was amongst probably 20 people, I would say. They all were female, but they do have males that go through there, and that is also quite common. And it's also becoming an increase because there's more awareness and acceptance, and there's less stigma that surrounds it. And so that was the one thing that I really learned.
Check. All right. So the question is, what do people
What's a
get?
common mistake?
Common mistake. That I'm aloof, that I'm not interested. You see, when you're a person of passion and you have goals and dreams, and you might be in a group of friends right now where you tell your friends that your goals are to be a state champion, or your goal is to be first seat in band, and people laugh at you, they think you're crazy. You have goals and dreams and aspirations, and you work harder than everybody else. People will often chalk that up to, you're aloof, you don't get it, you're crazy. Well, this has been, sort of the way that I've been perceived my whole life. When I was in school as an athlete, even my teammates couldn't figure out why I didn't want to go out on Friday night, because we had a match on Saturday, we had a tournament on Saturday. So don't be afraid to be different. Don't be afraid to be special. Your dreams and your goals and your passions are oftentimes going to set off people not to understand you. If you want to be a musician, if you want to be a business person, it's not necessarily going to be a situation where you're going to have a lot of people in the crowd cheering for you. You're going to have to move forward, and you're going to have to do it on your own at first. And then once you achieve that success, people are going to want to be around you because they're going to want to glom onto that success. Now, I speak about my own personal experience, but every
Batteries. Sorry.
every person in here matters, and your dreams matter. And so often in the world, when you run into the world and you start sharing your excitement, your enthusiasm, the world's going to push you back, because the world's not going to want to see you push them. And so I would challenge you personally. I don't know where each one of you students are at in terms of your academics or how things are going in class, but I would challenge you to always look at being your best self, regardless of the fact that sometimes your best friends are going to push you back and say, don't go there. But my challenge to you is because you're establishing the habits right now that are going to bring success in your life. And it's not enough to say, well, when I get out of school or whatever, I'm going to get serious about it. Your challenge right now is to start to learn to put together the habits and the skills that are going to make you successful at life. And so often, when you look at somebody in the eye, and you truly look them in the eye, they struggle with that, because in our culture today, we don't want to deal with other people. We want to go and hide. Please don't do that. Because the world needs you to be your best self. And I hope every student in here hears that. That's not intended just for, a guy that's a wrestler because I identify with wrestling. That's intended for the young ladies. That's intended for the other young men that don't participate. The world is looking for you to be your best self. And that's all that the world demands, really. But don't be surprised when people push back, because they will. And that's the misunderstanding, is they won't understand your dreams and goals. Go ahead and do it anyway.
I just want to say that's exactly right. Everybody, I started taking lessons in high school, and everybody's like, why do you got to start now? Because I wanted to. And I'm glad I did. It gave me the ability to graduate in 3 years, get a career that a lot of my other peers my age don't have. And yeah, I got a lot of pushback from it, but he's exactly right. You can't worry about that. And I don't know, I just had to have that.
I think sometimes too it seems easy.
for us, when you're a young person to have that, you're developing that ability to say, I gotta be my own self, because you're at an age where it's just much easier to try to hide in the crowd, because when you stand out, sometimes people don't always understand that, and that's when you get that pushback, and that's when I think we all can, because we've, the adults in here have been through that middle school and high school years, and I often joke I would never, ever go back and do that again, because it's such a hard time, because you're trying to figure out who you are, and for some people that takes a little bit longer in their lives to figure out who you are. I do college in a heartbeat, because that was where I discovered who I was, and I was okay with who I was. In high school, I wasn't. I was always trying to hide, like, I was the only kid in my high school only kid in my graduating class, or the class I was with, that did speech or plays. I was the only one. And it was really, really difficult, because it was asking me to do something. Our high school was very, very athletic. We had the Wiley boys we were 4-time wrestling champions 4 years in a row. We were state basketball champions, and everybody did athletic things. And then there was this nerd, Brenda Davis, my maiden name, and she does this weird thing here that nobody else does. And it was really hard, and there were several times I wanted to quit, because you just want to hide when you're in high school. You don't want to stand out. And but it was something I liked, and I wasn't going to let somebody else take that away from me.
To piggyback on what you said, Brenda, I've had multiple times in my life where I've faced adversity. For example, somebody has said to me, so you work, you don't stay home, you live alone, you can drive, you can have a family and kids, wow. And so I've had a lot of comments, addressed towards me like that. Even when I'm going out with my family and parking in a handicapped spot, they're like, they don't see my wheelchair when I'm driving. They're like, get upset, and they say, are you supposed to park there? And then they see that I use a wheelchair, and they don't feel bad, however. People are going to be people, but you do have to learn to know that in your heart you have to be kind, even though it's hard to always make those choices when people are saying those type of things to you. I guess I've learned in my life to trust the right people.
And I think we've been on the reverse of that, like where we have to be strong in who we are, but then sometimes we're on the other side where we're pushing a friend in the wrong way. Well, like, you shouldn't be doing that, because let's be completely honest, we've been on both ends. Maybe it's just me. I've been on both ends where I've tried to change somebody else when I shouldn't have, I don't think I was ever one with Jillian, because I always kind of wanted to have her fly me places. So I kind of encouraged the thing. I was like, take me down to my daughter in South London. I'm still waiting for that. But, I think we've been on both ends. And
I just wanted to add to that. I wish I could. Could I project? All right. The other thing that strikes me is that as I've gone through different things that I've done, it's awesome when you get around people that are hugely successful. I'm talking wealthy, maybe they've had all kinds of accomplishments. Those people have always struck me as being very complimentary and very diverse. And so I think it's a great takeaway to think about this question, is because those people don't become real judgmental of somebody else. They're the ones that are intrigued, and they're always curious about you. And so I think it's interesting, because when we're young, we kind of don't understand. We're all growing into who we are, what we're about, what our own interests are. And yet, we don't stop to think other people are going to be different. And that's beautiful. And the people that really get it are the people I just mentioned, the people that ultimately have great success in life. So maybe I wish I'd earlier on grabbed on to all of the other differences around me that I could acknowledge. where I wasn't good at speech and I wasn't good at debate. But those guys that were excellent in that, I wish I had gone to them and said, man, you're awesome. You're a state champ. We had a great debate in our high school.
Cherokee, yeah.
Yes, a
Well,
state
they're
debate.
top
And these
notch.
guys were awesome. They kicked tail everywhere they went.
They did.
So that's interesting. The further on and the higher you grow and everything you do, you're going to find people that really acknowledge other people and their differences, and it's awesome.
So one of the things that's always fascinated me is the concept of integrity and like how we develop that as time progresses. One of the things I really liked about reading something that you wrote, Chris, was that one of the people you admire is George Washington. And anybody that knows me knows that I'm a George Washington nerd. Jillian's laughing because of Mount Vernon. I cried when I touched a tree that he planted, okay? No judgment, okay? And we're not even going to talk about when I saw the bed where he died, I had a moment, okay? Because I love the things he stood for. I've read so many biographies. So when it comes to integrity, who is a role model that comes to mind for you when it comes to that, helping establish your value system? For me, it is my faith, but also good old George, GW.
I'm going to say it's definitely my faith too, but my mom has instilled integrity in me. She's told me to be brave within my soul, have a fierce mind, and talk through the tough conversations when they're hard. Because if you don't, they build up and they destroy relationships. And building quality relationships that are empathetic and vulnerable and true are the ones that I have always come back to. And my mom's really instilled that in me. If you aren't finding that within a relationship, a friendship, a situationship, those probably aren't your people. So I would definitely have to say my mom's taught me to be brave through hard and tough conversations and to value who you are throughout and not have to change who you are just based on the people you're around.
And I would like to say that obviously, my quest to get healthy is a personal quest, but I also have a 13-year-old little girl at home. And so right now we are right in the eye of the storm. So what I'm doing, what she's seeing me do, that's all going up here. And my hope for her is that she will never have to know what this feels like. She's going to see the struggles that I had. She's going to see how it affected our household and even relationships with my coworkers. And I'm hoping that she will develop a good relationship with food and know that what you're doing is nourishing your body. And it's absolutely important. The one thing right now that is just running rampant is, and I don't know how many of you, maybe I'm old and past it, but these filters on Instagram, they're ridiculous. They are making you feel as though you're somebody else, that you look like somebody better. And why not just be yourself? I mean, it's fun if you want to put little kitty ears on or whatever, but what's happening is people are seeing themselves so much enhanced. And then when they look at themselves in reality, then they go, oh, I don't know. And so I think it's really, you guys have a really unique situation in that you've got that social media thing happening. And you even also have, like when you make a post, how many likes am I gonna get? And how do I look in this picture? Or Photoshop, you can manipulate how your body even looks. And so right now, I commend all of you. If you guys, I mean, have fun with the filters, have fun with posting, have fun with social media or TikTok or whatever it might be. But please just remember that your authentic self without a filter is just fine. What you have is what God gave you, and you should cherish it. It doesn't mean you can't make improvements, but it's very important to have an acceptance of your body because you are still changing. What you're seeing your body as right now isn't going to be what your body's going to be in 5 years. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to end in 5 years because even my body is still changing. Unfortunately, mine is getting older though, but mine's not getting younger. But that's the one thing that I guess I am very self-aware of is my daughter. Is watching what her and her friends are doing on social media and how they're manipulating themselves, and it really bothers me. So all I can say is just have fun with it, but don't be afraid to be you. Post something that's real, you know? And if you don't get all the likes or the whatever it is, who cares? It doesn't matter. Because ultimately, you want to have the best body possible. If you are in sports, and I don't know how many of you are, if you are not nourishing your body, you will not perform like you should. If you're studying, if you are not nourishing your body, you are not going to think accurately or properly. It's going to affect you all across the board. And so I guess I'm just kind of here as an advocate to try to get people to realize and love and accept themselves as they are. And that's really, I think, the number one thing. And it's tough. I mean, I even get wrapped up in it sometimes on a Sunday afternoon when it's cold and rainy out, you know, you get on there and you kind of have a little fun. But just remember, you are okay without that filter. And be proud of it. It's what God gave you.
The question was about integrity, right? So
Like a role model or?
Yeah, role model. So, my mom definitely has always been very supportive there, but unfortunately she's not a pilot, so she cannot relate with a lot of the things that I was going through. So somebody who I really looked to was our chief pilot and chief flight instructor at SDSU. He was my flight instructor for CFI, and then he became my boss once he got hired on as a flight instructor at SDSU. And he was very encouraging and really encouraged me to have hard conversations. Flight instructing is not easy, and not just the flying part, but also you're putting yourself in a really vulnerable position when you're learning how to fly, when you're teaching somebody how to fly, and emotions really do come into it a lot more than people would think. And he was always there to have hard conversations with me, to encourage me to own up to my mistakes, because a common pilot personality trait, there's a pilot personality quiz that you can take out there, and overinflated ego is part of that. A lot of pilots don't like to admit their mistakes, they walk around with an air about them. But he taught me that the best pilots are the ones who are always willing to learn from other pilots, no matter how many ratings they have, how many hours they have. You can learn something from anyone. Owning up to those mistakes, because people make mistakes, and then how you recover from it is going to say more about you as a person than the mistake itself.
All right, so to me, integrity flows out of what are your principles, what guides your life, what are your goals, what are your aspirations, but more importantly in this sense is what are your values? And without a question, you know, my role model has been are my parents, my dad and my mom, and they basically gave us faith, family, and then, you know, everything else, you know, and usually in that order was like school and then, you know, sports. But integrity is about being true to your principles. If you think, you know, relationships are important, how do you treat other kids? Do you have integrity? Do you treat your friends with a kind of kindness that you